So this is my first time at the CrossFit Games, but also my first time in the US. As you can tell, I'm British. I've come a very long way to get here, and I've been kind of documenting, sort of accidentally, my massive culture shock coming here on my Instagram page, and it's clear that you're absolutely loving it, so I'm going to bring it over to my YouTube channel. This is in no way a criticism of things that happen in America, it's just some like observations that I've made having been here, and I'm a very observant person and I'm quite sensitive to change, and I just notice when things are different. What's interesting to me is America feels very similar to the UK, and a lot of things look very similar but are actually completely different. Some of them shockingly so. So I got here yesterday and I had the most chaotic trip ever, and if you saw my vlogs from Berlin you'll know that recently I've not had the best travelling experiences and this time was far worse than even Berlin. So I have to travel quite a long way to get to the airport in London. London's the only airport that will do a long haul flight, and I live in Cornwall, which is, if you imagine England like a boot, I'm in the toe of Britain. So it takes like 4 to 7 hours to get to London. Fortunately we were driving overnight so it didn't take that long, it was around the 4-hour mark. We left at 1 AM UK time and got to the airport Heathrow in London at 6 AM ish, checked in. My flight was at 9, got to the flight and I didn't know this was a thing, but I ended up getting bumped off my flight. I paid for a ticket, why did I not have a seat on the flight? Made no sense to me whatsoever. I was flying with American Airlines and they explained to me that it's really common and that there was not just me, it was like multiple people were bumped off this flight, and because I hadn't selected a seat, there were no free ones available and I didn't really care where I sat, so I didn't want to pay for one. So I just left it, because in Europe if you leave it they just select a seat for you for free anyway. So that's what I did, and it turns out I ended up with no seat on the plane. They did, however, book me on a flight just over 2 hours afterwards, and I ended up leaving at about 11 o'clock, but that meant I'd been up since 1 AM and I hadn't slept. I'd been in an awful airport until 11 o'clock. Got on the flight at 11 o'clock and it's like an 8-hour flight to Chicago. I decided to fly to Chicago because flights to Madison were way more expensive, and people had suggested to me that Chicago is a much bigger airport. Flights are a lot cheaper and you can basically get a bus or drive from Chicago to Madison. So thank you for everybody that gave me that tip on Instagram. I probably arrived around 2ish, but the airport is so big and the queues are massive, and of course you've got like visa issues and stuff here. I had like a visa waiver, but I was in a massive queue for ages and basically didn't leave the airport till like 3 o'clock to go and get on my hotel transfer, which again took like another hour to arrive, so I didn't get back to the hotel until 4 PM. By that point I was absolutely starving. I hadn't eaten before my flight really because I just was gonna get straight on. We had some food on the plane but it was very small portions, and I didn't sleep basically at all on the plane. I attempted to nod off for a couple of seconds but it didn't work. So I got back to the hotel and I was starving hungry and also really tired. Ordered in, I think it's Popeye's chicken. It was really good actually, and I had I think you guys call it like a chicken sandwich. We call it a chicken burger. If it comes in one of those burgers, it's a chicken burger. Some chicken nuggets, other stuff. It was basically whatever I could order on Uber Eats pretty quickly. By the time I'd eaten and had a shower, it was 7 PM and I realised I hadn't slept in 24 hours. I've also got bipolar disorder as well, and not sleeping is a massive trigger for my mood episodes, and by that point I was starting to feel like a load of symptoms of a low mood, and I did have, and this is in really severe cases, I occasionally have some hallucinations, especially at night time. These aren't like extreme hallucinations, you don't like see like whole entire people or things happening that don't exist. It's more like things start to morph into other things. So there was a sign in the middle of the road and to me it looked like it was like a full building and that we were driving directly into a building. And then I also get the thing which is like shadow people, which I've heard is quite common, where it's like where shadows of like trees or lampposts start to look like they're people trying to cross the road. So like some mild hallucinations, which was not fun. But I got to the hotel, took my melatonin and some of my mental health medication, went to sleep and slept for 12 hours. And then yesterday, thankfully, I woke up feeling much more refreshed. I had complimentary breakfast at the hotel, but this is one of the first things that fully shocked me. Obviously in the UK we have like really savoury breakfasts, and like a full English breakfast is like sausage, beans, eggs, etc. Here everything was sweet, and it wasn't just like normal level sweet, it was like jam It had like 4 types of different sugar in it, and it was like 1,000 times sweeter than the jam that I've ever had in the UK. It felt like they dumped like 5 additional spoonfuls of sugar into the jam. I had jam on toast, a yogurt and a little tiny muffin thing, and then a coffee. And I didn't realise that I've been asking for milk. I had a coffee on the plane and at the airport, and I kept asking for milk in my coffee, not realising that here you guys have like creamer, which I didn't really know what that was. And at breakfast I was like trying to look for the milk and I couldn't find any. It said creamer and then there was half and half. And my first question was, what is half and half? Like, is half of what and half of what? Like, I presumed it might be like semi-skimmed, which is kind of like half fat milk, but it's actually not. Apparently it's half milk and half cream, like half single cream. And in the UK, single cream is like just for desserts. So that was weird. But it actually tasted really nice in my coffee. The coffee was good. After eating the jam on toast, the muffin and the yogurt, I had the biggest sugar headache. And I'm not really that into sugary stuff. Like, I love chocolate, but I don't really eat stuff like sweets. If I have any more than like 5 sweets in the UK, like UK level sugar sweets, I get a bit of a headache. After I had breakfast, it felt like I'd eaten a whole bag of Haribo. I had like full-on heart palpitations, I had a headache, it was horrendous, and I felt so bad after both of those meals actually. The first meal tasted really good, but I just felt like I don't know, I was just really craving like vegetables afterwards, and it was like really high fat content. Of course it's fast food, so it's gonna be, but I definitely noticed the difference. So after breakfast yesterday, I didn't have a huge amount of time. I had a shuttle to go and get on my bus at like 10:30. I got on the bus to Madison, and there were also people going to the CrossFit Games. It was really cool to chat to some people about CrossFit, especially having travelled on my own for the last day. On the shuttle ride over though, that was hilarious. I literally got asked if I'd had dinner with the Queen. And they were talking about like castles and horses and carriages, like I go to work in a horse and carriage and live in a castle. Just to clarify, no, I've not had lunch with the Queen. That's not a normal thing. She's very busy, and obviously you can't do that anymore because she passed away. Having lunch with the Queen, King, royals is not a thing. And also British people, a lot of us don't really care that much about the royal family. Like, they're kind of cool, like it's interesting, but they don't have much impact on our life, especially those of us that don't live in London. No, I do not live in a castle. We have come on a really long way since like the last 100 years. I live in a house. There are castles, and castles are like tourist attractions mostly. There is one near my mum that is kind of converted into a restaurant, which is amazing, but yeah, most of them are just tourist attractions. And no, I don't go to work on like a horse and carriage. We have cars. Downton Abbey is like not what it's like in the UK. It's honestly, having seen the US, the UK in many ways is more modern than the US. I have been in a horse and carriage though, but that was when I was younger, and it's because my mum was friends with someone that had a horse and carriage and did it for their job. But yeah, that's really, the stereotypes of British people are really interesting. I've also noticed that literally nobody understands me. I'm probably talking quite fast now, but when I do videos, I try and make sure I pronounce everything properly, and I try and steer away from like slang. This is sort of my teacher voice. Obviously I was a teacher for many years, and this is how I like present as a teacher. However, conversationally, I've noticed I speak very differently. I speak very fast, and I do cut off a lot of the ends of my words, and I use a lot of slang, like British slang, which in the UK doesn't feel like slang because everybody uses it, but coming here I've realised some of the words that I'm saying are slang, like knackered, which means really exhausted, which obviously I have been really exhausted for the last couple of days. So when people are like, how are you, I've said, yeah, I'm really knackered, and they've not understood what I meant. And literally as soon as I open my mouth, people just like give me a blank stare, and I'm like, oh, I need to slow down and pronounce my words properly. So got on the bus, got to Madison perfectly fine, and actually arrived yesterday, and I'm feeling a lot better. I've realised that your portions here are so much bigger than the UK and I just ordered like a regular size, but I could only eat a quarter of my food both times. And last night I ordered pasta. I got like mac and cheese, but I could add like broccoli, red onions and like some other veggies to it, so I did that. And I just put the rest in the hotel fridge. Having some veggies made me feel so much better. My mission today is to eat some more like nutrient dense foods because my body is craving it, especially after the couple of sugar hits. And if I order on any of the online apps, I think I'm gonna like purposely order a large amount and then save parts of it in the fridge. I'm quite a frugal person, I don't like food waste anyway, and that means I can have like several meals back at home because I'm probably going to be editing while I'm at the hotel room. So that is the plan, and I think I need to go to some sort of supermarket. I know there's a Trader Joe's and a Pick and Save. I just need some fruit and salad and just some things with loads of nutrients in that I can like add or have like a snack plate or something. I feel like eating out or ordering in is not going to get me what my body is craving, so maybe some smoothies or something like that. I just need more nutrients. So the CrossFit game starts at 9 AM and I'm going to head down there soon. It is currently nearly 7 o'clock, so I'm going to head in for breakfast. I guarantee it's probably going to be like super sweet jam and really sweet stuff again, so I'm going to try and steer away from that as much as possible and try and pick some things that are going to make me feel good. Hopefully there's something, and then we'll head down to the CrossFit Games and I'm going to fill you in with all of my little culture shock things along the way because there is a lot. Breakfast is a success. So obviously I got my coffee, I need coffee, and milk. They had milk because they had cereal. They also had milk. So I skipped all of the creamer and went straight for the milk in the fridge. Because I'm like a frugal traveller, frugal person generally, and I just like saving money. I don't like spending money unnecessarily. Obviously, given the chance, I'm going to take extra breakfast food to have later, so I've got like 2 little pastries that I'm just going to save as like a snack to have at some point. But I managed to have a savoury breakfast. It doesn't look very appetising, but there was sausages and like egg circle things and toast. And I was gonna like have it and like cut it up like a proper English breakfast. In the end, the plastic cutlery didn't work and I ended up having to eat it like a sandwich, but I think I'll have a bagel tomorrow. I'm super happy that they had a savoury breakfast available because I could not deal with like that sugar hangover one more day. So I'm going to finish my coffee and then I'm going to head down to the venue. I am planning on walking, and yesterday I did go for a little walk around and there were some little observations that I had. Now, firstly, I've had a lot of DMs about this since posting about it. As a British person, for some reason, we believe that getting arrested for jaywalking is a really common thing here. I have since learned that it's not. But basically, yesterday I was walking around and I was really panicking about getting arrested for jaywalking, and some of the road crossings do not make any sense to me. Some of them just have 2 lines either side. There are no like zebra crossings that we have in sight. Some have what we call like pelican crossings where you press a button and then you go across and it's got signals. Those are fine. And then there are some roads where there are no marked signs. And I was like, does that mean that I just can't cross? Like, am I not allowed? It didn't make any sense to me, because in the UK you can cross wherever you want. You're not going to get arrested for jaywalking. It's not a thing. And I wonder if it's something to do with like TV and media, that we've just been made to think that that's something that happens really regularly here. And I literally had like 3 people from home remind me of that rule before I left. So it's clearly something that a lot of us believe. But yeah, apparently not a thing. More observations. TV here is a bit strange, and this is, I guess in hotels you have cable TV, whatever that is. I'm guessing that's just like regular like main channels. In the UK we have loads of really good channels on like our main TV. We pay a TV licence to the BBC. It's a legal requirement, and that means that loads of amazing programmes get funded. The ones that you might recognise are stuff like Downton Abbey, Peaky Blinders, Luther, Line of Duty. All of those are originated on what would be our cable TV, so like our main channels that you can get anywhere and you don't have to pay for. But here it seems like your main channels are just shopping channels, or some of them have like a lot of adverts, and the only stuff that I've found that I can watch, ironically, is Downton Abbey with like breaks where they're trying to sell you the whole DVD set and like ask for like funding and donations. And then the women's football, which I watched yesterday. Everything else is really random and weird. And there are a lot of commercial breaks, which I kind of knew about America, but I didn't realise that it was so much of a thing. The medical adverts are super weird. Like a lot of them are like going for the walks in the park, or like literally skipping around, like because this medicine has like given them their life back. And they make so many random claims about it curing literally everything, from like the first issue that the person had to like other really unrelated issues. And then randomly, like somewhere within it, they're like, oh, also it might cause death and blindness. And like everybody's still like joyfully having a great time in the park. It just seems really really surreal to me. And then another one that I noticed is there was a very specific advert about an accident claim, and it was like, have you been hit by a truck? And it just made me think, like, how many people have been hit by a truck for it to be that specific of an advert? Like, is that a really big problem in the US? Like, crazy. I mean, if it is, like, that must be quite scary. But that was a bit of an interesting one. We don't get adverts like that are that specific in the UK. It's like, have you had an accident? That's as specific as it gets. But I guess there are more people here. One of the biggest things that I've noticed whilst being here so far is that everything is so big, and the roads are clearly made for people that are driving most of the time. Like in Europe it was very different. A lot of people are on bikes and walking. In the UK it's kind of made for people in cars and also walking, but here there are not a lot of people walking. Like yesterday I walked for 40 minutes and only saw 2 people walking, which was quite a shock. And also I've noticed that everything looks really stretched out. Like obviously it's really big, like much bigger. Like this hotel room was pretty cheap. It's the Super 8. It seems like a lot of other CrossFitters are staying in this hotel, and it's one of the cheap ones, but the room is huge. Like you would pay a lot more for a room this size in the UK, and obviously that's just because everything is smaller over there, and or maybe everything's bigger over here. But all the buildings look like they've been flattened and stretched out. Like although there are like some kind of taller ones, like especially in Chicago there were some taller buildings, but they're all super wide. Like in London you see a lot of like tall slender skyscrapers, and here there seems to be slightly less of that. There isn't very much greenery in Chicago at all, but Madison is beautiful. There's lakes and trees and it's just so lovely. And one final food observation. I tried Hershey's yesterday. I love chocolate and I'm literally obsessed with chocolate. I literally had a tiny bite and felt like I was going to be sick. It was disgusting. And I've never had that much of a visceral reaction to any sort of chocolate before. Like I've eaten chocolate that's way past its sell by date and has been too old to even contemplate eating, and I've still eaten it because it's chocolate and I like chocolate and I've got a strong stomach and I've got a high tolerance for stuff like that. But for some reason I had one bite of that Hershey's bar and I literally gagged. It has that horrible aftertaste which actually tastes like vomit, and apparently it's got some sort of acid in it that is also present in vomit, which I like, why would you do that? It makes no sense to me. I've since been told that apparently Hershey's is like a no-go, but I don't really understand why it's on so many shelves if nobody likes it. Maybe they do like it, maybe Americans like it, I'm not sure. Let me know. American chocolate is super weird, and it's weird because I thought like Dairy Milk is what we have and Galaxy, I thought they would be like available everywhere. I didn't realise that they were like a UK thing. Yeah, so food, although it looks very similar to stuff in the UK, tastes entirely different. That's what I'm learning, which gives me a whole new view on all of the YouTubers I watch that do like a full day of eating. Like the stuff that they're eating must taste completely different to the way I think it tastes. I've also been told that fruit tastes different here. Like apparently tastes more watered down, like less flavoury. I'm gonna go and get some fruit later, so we'll see what happens. But first, let's get to the main event. I'm gonna head down to the CrossFit Games for the first time. I need to get ready first. So today, because it's the first day, it's going to be the age groups, and I thought that Sam Briggs had retired like for good, but apparently she's qualified for the age group, so she'll be in there today. And obviously Sam Briggs comes from Manchester in the UK. Manchester is where I was born, even though I don't have the accent, so I'm really excited to see her, and they're going to be the first ones on. Something I've noticed is like inside all of the buildings, it doesn't feel any hotter than the UK, and that's because in the US they have air conditioning. Oh, it's gone like curdled. That's a bit weird. That's way too much. But when I go outside, it's so hot. Unbearably stuffy. And I'm wearing black today, which is probably a really bad idea. But I also don't really want to get my shoulders burnt on the first day. I know I'm going to get quite overwhelmed in crowds. I do all the time. I did it at the Berlin semi-finals. I do have a pair of earplugs. I've got those, the loop ones, I'm going to wear. I'm fully aware though that I'll probably need to just come back and chill out at my hotel later on because crowds of people do scare me. Which probably seems really weird, the fact that I'm coming to the CrossFit Games even though I struggle with crowds and people. But it's totally worth it, and I find with like stuff like my anxiety, my PTSD, sometimes it's just worth getting out of my comfort zone and sometimes kind of suffering the consequences because I've got out of my comfort zone and I'm kind of prepared for that. Like I know I'm going to be overwhelmed, so I can do other things when I get back to calm myself down and feel more myself again. So although being neurodiverse does impact me quite a lot, it also doesn't have to stop me from doing things. Having just said that though, I am actually feeling really nervous now. Going to new places generally is scary for me, and it's gonna be a bit scary going there for the first time, but I'm gonna be fine. It's gonna be worth it. I'm ready to go. I'm not sure if walking is the best idea, but I'm gonna attempt it today, and worst case I can get an Uber halfway. Okay, so I completely changed my mind about walking. I'm gonna get an Uber. I'm just feeling too anxious to walk, and I think if I want to walk, I'll walk back later. Currently filming on my phone because they've got like a weird camera policy. I didn't manage to see what it said because my camera is in my bag, but I think while it's quite quiet, I'm gonna just film on my phone. So of course I went straight into the No Ball tent because I wanted the Hobart t-shirt and the Thor Resort t-shirt. I'm rooting for one of those to win, and I also got myself a hat. I felt like I needed like a games kind of style bucket hat. Disappointingly, they don't have an extra large in anything. I wanted one of the really cute like crop tops, the like ribbed ones, but they said they only got to large. I also heard somebody else, like a female, asking for an extra large in something, and the people on the Noble stand were like, oh, just offer her the men's stuff because we don't do XLs. Like, it's unacceptable. I mean, I know I've just bought from Noble. I bought 2 XL t-shirts from the men's section, but they need to start making clothes for people that are like a regular size, because it is the average size of people. It's definitely something that needs to change, and there are loads of people that are my size here. Honestly, I thought they'd all be like super ripped and thin and looking like athletes, but there are people of all different body shapes here, and we all need clothes. I got really overwhelmed and had to leave. I want to watch Sam Briggs and she's on at 2 o'clock. It's so hot. I really struggle with the heat. I couldn't deal with it anymore, and I was just getting a little bit anxious. But this thing over here looks like it might be some nice shade. I might just sit in it, drink my lemonade and chill out. Oh, there's benches. I'm gonna chill out here for like an hour, I think. This is so nice. I've just found like the most shaded place. I got so overwhelmed. And for me, it's just something that I need to deal with when I'm going to events, and I knew that I was going to get overwhelmed when I came here, and this is just the first day. There aren't even a lot of people here right now. It's just the heat for me right now is too much. It's only 26 degrees. How is it only 26 degrees? It feels so hot. It feels way hotter than it is in the UK. I think maybe it's because it's humid and I'm just not used to it. So I'm really shocked that it's actually a lot smaller than I was expecting. I think maybe those of us from Europe, and actually I was speaking to a couple of people from the US, like further down, and it's a shock that it's as small as it is. On the live stream it looks so much bigger. Obviously it's because they probably use wide angle lenses on their cameras, but we have places in Cornwall, which is a tiny place in the UK, that have bigger venues than this for events that I've been to in Cornwall. For the CrossFit Games to be this size, it doesn't make sense to me. It's not bad that it's small, but in my head I just made it out to be a lot bigger. Obviously I've not been into the Coliseum yet, and that looks quite big from the outside, but again it's not bigger than like some of the venues that you see in places in Cornwall. That's really surprising. I thought it was going to be like this massive stadium, especially because I'm in America and that's the place for massive stadiums. Oh, another weird thing, I've already posted it on my Instagram. Lemonade here it's not fizzy. Is that normal? Is that the same everywhere? Because Lemonade in the UK is 100% fizzy, like very fizzy, and we don't have strawberry lemonade really either, that's what I've got now. Lemonade is always fizzy. In fact, anything with aid on the end of it tends to be fizzy, like orangeade and some others. If it's got aid on the end, it's fizzy. And I keep buying lemonade thinking it's gonna be like this really nice fizzy refreshing drink, and it's refreshing but it's not fizzy. I want fizzy. It's still good though, and it's got ice in it. So if any of you are anxious like me and need a like little shady place to go to, I literally walked out the back and I asked him if I could leave. It looks like I'm near like the car park, and there was just like loads of trees, and I was like, oh, I could just go sit underneath a tree. And then I saw this building and there's like loads of benches in it, or 2 benches in it, and it's just the perfect place. So Sam Briggs is on next. She's going to be on at 2 p.m. and I honestly think I'm just going to sit here for a little bit, maybe an hour, and just like settle down, calm my nerves, feel a bit less anxious. I watched a load of the adaptive athletes. They were amazing, and it's such a shame that we don't get to see them on the live coverage. Oh my god, and I've got messages as well saying how bad the live stream is right now, and I'll put up a screenshot of the camera angle. Like, you can't see anything at all, and they're talking about like people being on the rower, and the rower's not even in shot. It's nowhere near being in shot. They've literally got a bit of railing, and then you can kind of see the field in the background. I feel like it wouldn't be too hard just to have a person walking around with the camera, or even if they can't afford someone walking around with it, just a person every so often to pick up the camera on the tripod, go and put it somewhere else near where the athletes are actually working out, because at the moment you're just staring at a blank screen and listening to commentary that some of the commentators are better than others, and this one at the moment is just like, oh yeah, they've got to go fast on this one, and stuff like that, kind of saying things that are like almost just like filler stuff, which I found happened quite a lot at the Berlin semi-finals. The live stream coverage, the commentators on those are always a lot better. I mean, you always don't really get coverage of the age groups and the teens and the adaptive athletes, but I really think they should be. And I think some of them have amazing stories that need to be told, and to me it just makes sense to show more of the sport. And part of the problem at the moment is they've been so rigid with press passes, and like even some of the bigger named people are struggling to get press passes, and that just doesn't make sense to me. Like, gatekeeping it all that much when you're struggling to make a broadcast yourself. Like, if it was me, I'd be trying to get as many people in to film it as possible, get loads of vloggers or whatever, people like me, like people with bigger channels, get them all in, get them filming some of the individual athletes, allow athletes to employ their own videographers, tell their story, get it up on YouTube, and that's only going to help grow the sport. If we're really rigid with the rules around who can film and really stingy with press passes, it's not going to help grow the sport. But I'll get a little bit of footage today. I'll get some of Sam Briggs as well, and then at least you'll see some. Unfortunately, I don't know some of the names of the adaptive athletes that I was watching earlier, but they were incredible. I believe every division deserves a certain amount of coverage, and maybe what people say that CrossFit doesn't have any money, maybe that is true. Like, having seen it here in real life, I had in my head it painted out to be this really big sport with a really massive Olympic scale final event like the CrossFit Games, but it's a lot smaller than I was expecting. I'm really surprised. It's weird because I've been in the CrossFit space for 6 years, and having seen the CrossFit Games on the live stream for that long and all the documentaries, it just looks very different. I'm not like disappointed. In fact, if anything, I prefer smaller events. It is just a bit of a shock to the system. So clothes wise, obviously I bought the Laura Horvath t-shirt, and I've also got the Annie's one. I got my hat. I knew that I needed a hat, and I thought I better get a CrossFit Games style bucket hat, because why not? And they also gave me like a little bag as well. I got that free because I bought so much. We won't talk about that. Unfortunately though, as we know, Noble is not size inclusive, and this is a man's extra large, and they basically didn't stock any above a size large for women at all. Like, you know those cute little ribbed kind of crop tops? I wanted one of those, but they didn't have my size, obviously. So left there. Like, these are the only clothes I'll ever buy from them, because they're the only clothes that will actually fit me, and I think brands should cater for all sizes. Also, I had in my mind that people here were going to be all like elite looking athletes, but actually there's a huge range of people, and I think we're made to think that people at the CrossFit Games are like the fittest crowd on earth and they all like look the part. But there's loads of bodies like mine, like there's loads of people that are in lots of different shapes and sizes. Not everybody looks like an elite CrossFit athlete or a bodybuilder. Not everybody has a six-pack. And also, the people that are spectating, they're the ones that are going to go into the vendor village. So I think it would pay brands to actually cater for the spectators rather than maybe stocking a million size extra smalls for like people that are elite athletes and skipping out on the XLs. But equally, people that are elite athletes are not necessarily extra smalls. You can get people that are like a large and are an elite athlete because they've got big muscles. Sizing is weird. But on the plus side, there is some lovely brands in there, and you'll know that LSKD is one of my favourite brands, and they have a stand in there, and I was chatting to them about it as well, and they've got loads of sizes in there, a big range, and I definitely recommend going to see them if you're actually here, especially if you're like my size. And they had some like really nice phrases on some of the tops as well. I think I'm gonna get one of them. Oh, it was "We rise by lifting others," which I love so much. Oh, I've had so many people come up to me and it's made my day. I was nearly crying multiple times. I've had selfies with lots of you. It's just the best feeling in the world that I could help anybody in like a small way. I just love that, and I really hope that my content and some of my vulnerability, maybe too much vulnerability sometimes that I show, I hope that it just helps you feel more normal, and like that it's okay to come and sit in the middle of nowhere when you're at the CrossFit Games because you got overwhelmed. Like, that's fine. I've even got like a little space that I found earlier that's like, if I have a panic attack, that's where I'm gonna go. So I'm gonna chill out here a little bit longer, and then I'm gonna go inside and hopefully get some footage of Sam Briggs doing her max Olympic weightlifting total. That's gonna be really exciting. I think I'm gonna head home. I was gonna walk, but I'm definitely not gonna walk. It's way too hot. So I'll probably get an Uber home, and then I'm considering trying to go in the lake, maybe hire a paddleboard. I either want to do that today or tomorrow. It depends how I feel at the end of this. Right, I'm gonna go in and watch Sam. I'm gonna show you some of the houses over there because they're so cute. I keep looking over every couple of seconds, and they're like what I imagine to be like classic American houses. In the UK, they're not like that. I'll show you. They're just so cute with the like little yards out the front, and there's lots of greenery here. It's so pretty. It's so much nicer than Chicago, which was just barren and lots of buildings. Right, now I'm feeling a little bit refreshed. Let's go back inside and watch Sam. So I'm back at the hotel. I am absolutely exhausted. I'm struggling quite badly with jet lag today, I think. It was so cool to watch Sam Briggs. She's one of my favourite athletes literally ever. She's like the engine, isn't she? And it was just cool to see her go full send at the end of that workout. She was like a little bit behind. I didn't realise she was like a world championship like rower. That's what the announcers said anyway, that she got some world records in rowing, which is insane. She smoked the row. On the wall balls, Rachel Green caught her up, and then Sam basically went a little bit faster on the burpee box overs or burpee over pig things, whatever they were. She was really good at the farmer carries, and that's probably from her like firefighting sort of background that she's got at the moment. And just finished it way before Rachel, and then Rachel came in second after that. Sam obviously struggles a little bit more with the weightlifting, so she had a bit of a lower score in the weightlifting. And I know there's been quite a lot of talk about Andrea Pinheiro, I think is how you say it. I think she started off in bodybuilding, but she's quite stacked. She's got a lot of muscle mass and she is incredibly strong. She must have had over 100 kilos on that barbell because there was like 2 sets of blues on each side. She was incredible on the weightlifting and she got a first place with 410 pounds, it says. She smashed that. Annoyingly, I didn't realise that there was another category, and I went back to the hotel and missed out on seeing people like Stacey Tovar and Sam Dancer, but I'll see them tomorrow in some of the events. Sam Dancer used to be one of my favourite athletes ever. He's just so funny and such a character, and he had a massive deadlift when I started, and obviously I love a deadlift, so basically I idolised anybody with a big deadlift. Kelly Friel and Jason Grubb also did amazingly in their category, which was the 45 to 49 category, and Jason Grubb has got a YouTube channel actually, and I've seen a couple of his videos. They're awesome. He's really good. So definitely go and check him out. It's really cool to see the perspective of a masters athlete, especially in the like 45 to 49 category. And as somebody so rightly pointed out in the comments, the age group categories, especially the like 65 plus categories, that is showing off how amazing CrossFit is for longevity and strength in later life. And showing these athletes off should be part of what CrossFit does, because that is where the methodology is really shining. It's not necessarily these top athletes that at their age could probably excel in many sports, but it's the fact that CrossFit is allowing people at the age of 65 plus to participate in a sport, do really well and be fitter than the majority of the average population. That's amazing, and that should be celebrated. I think that's really important, and I think that's why it's important that we do something about this live stream situation. But hopefully I've got a little bit of footage here, and I'll try and get some more across the weekend, as well as some of the individual athletes. If you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy some of my Berlin semi-final videos. There'll be more to come this week. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!